had also come under enormous influence from the LTT propaganda machine. There was weaponry for which we had already committed funds, but was not being released. Sri Lanka was being squeezed very effectively by the LTT through its propaganda in the West, through its contacts in the West, which it had built up over the years, very surreptitiously but very effectively. So it became the responsibility of the Foreign Ministry to counter this. We had to constantly keep on engaging Western policymakers, their foreign ministries, so that at least a degree of sympathy remained for Sri Lanka. I recall visiting the Czech Republic at a time when the Czech had simply suspended the shipment of a certain quantity of vital armaments to Sri Lanka. And of course, we know that subsequent to that visit and the follow-up visits by the Defense Ministry, the weapons began to be resupplied to Sri Lanka. And they played a critical role in the eventual outcome. Similarly, I undertook a visit to Israel in 2007 with the same objective, and the results were quite satisfactory. The visit to Mexico that you referred to took place in 2009 at a time when the Security Council was becoming increasingly interested in what was going on in Sri Lanka. The Foreign Ministry played an absolutely vital role in preventing Security Council consideration of our situation. If the Security Council had got hold of the Sri Lankan situation and Sri Lanka had gone on the agenda of the Security Council, it would have been very difficult to predict the outcome. We know that once the Security Council adopts decisions under Chapter 7, they are binding on the entire international community. And our mission in New York at the time played a critical role in preventing Sri Lanka becoming an agenda item of the organization. Similarly, during that same period, the Foreign Ministry liaised very closely with countries of the region, India, Southeast Asian countries, China, etc., to ensure that LTT propaganda was, the effect of LTT propaganda was maintained at a minimum level. We couldn't eliminate it because they had already built up their networks, but I think we succeeded in countering this propaganda to a great extent. We also assisted the Defense Ministry in developing intelligence sharing mechanisms with the countries of the region, and that helped also. In fact, not only did we manage to counter the LTT naval threat with the assistance of the countries of the region, subsequently, after the war, we also succeeded in taking into our custody the main arms procurer of the LTT. Not only was he the main arms procurer, he was also the man who controlled the LTT finances. As you know, KP is now in our custody. So the unheralded role played by the Foreign Ministry during this period, I think, was very important because it ensured the continued flow of weaponry to Sri Lanka. It also helped us to explore new avenues of investment in Sri Lanka. We managed to contain to a great extent the impact of the LTT propaganda machine on Western policymakers. You know, you have to remember that we live in a globalized world. We couldn't simply turn around and tell countries which are not sympathetic to us that we would go it alone. We just couldn't, because in some way or other, many countries were in a position to have an impact on us, whether it was in the area of armaments, finance, remembering that many of our banks operate through larger Western banks based in Western countries, the United Nations itself, where we were a very small player, but I must say with a great deal of pride, we have managed to play a role within the United Nations which has been of great assistance to Sri Lanka as a nation. So at the end of the day, the foreign ministry did play a role, not highly publicized, but an effective and low-key role.
And what was the sort of leadership given to this role of foreign ministry by the president?
As I said before, it was the president's vision that guided us all along. There were times when even I entertained doubts about our ability to get to the end of this tunnel created for us by the LTT, this tunnel of terror, fear, and the possibility of even separation of our country into two parts. But I must say that the president constantly maintained a faith and a direction which was very infectious and which is very difficult to challenge. And I think the country as a whole should be grateful to him for that leadership, because there was never any doubt in my mind that he would take this country to the end of this era of fear, terror, and uncertainty. As I said, even when bureaucrats like me had doubts about our abilities, he maintained the faith. And of course it paid good dividends at the end.
Yes, Doctor, I asked you that question because also we often hear and see also in the media that the retired general also claiming sort of the ownership of the war, and it is the military victory. So when you are describing the international pressures faced by Sri Lanka in terms of embargoes or stopping the arms and ammunition, and also the Security Council issues, and also the leadership that the foreign ministry had to take, I was trying to understand what was the retired general's role in strengthening the international relations, or making sure that there will be a continuous stream of support system by the international world, because if somebody is to sort of claim ownership for the war, this part should be crucial. So what was the role of the retired general in that context of the withstanding international pressure?
I think it is more important to discuss the role of the president in all this. Undoubtedly, the soldiers on the ground, the naval personnel, the Air Force personnel played a critical role, an absolutely vital role in bringing this conflict to an end, to a successful end. But they could not have achieved what they did without the leadership provided by the president, both to the military and to the rest of the administration. The foreign ministry is critically aware of the leadership that the president provided, the guidance that he provided, because as I was explaining earlier, the military, I do not think, would have succeeded in getting to the end of this road if not for the fact that the president's leadership enabled us to ensure the continued flow of funds to this country, the continued flow of weaponry to this country, and also in ensuring that foreign governments and groups did not gang up on us to prevent us from achieving that final goal. There was an enormous amount of pressure, especially at the beginning of 2009, to stop the humanitarian operation that we had launched. You will recall that in early 2009, there was delegation after delegation that came to Sri Lanka from Western capitals under pressure from LTT lobby groups, from the United Nations and other sources to stop us from completing our operation. The Secretary General of the United Nations phoned the President on numerous occasions. He actually visited this country also. Other representatives from the UN came on a regular basis. The message at the end was very clear.